Those who follow me on social media know that I'm kind of a purist when it comes to retro gaming. I actively try to avoid things like emulators, flash carts, and EverDrives. No disrespect, though, to anyone who uses those things. You experience these games however you see fit, and you'll get no judgment from me. Having said that, I think there is one modern device that may have been able to, let's say, crack the impenetrable shell of retro fundamentalism that I've built up around myself. And that device is this: the Evercade by Blaze Entertainment. The Evercade was released in late May of 2020, and while the launch was not without issue, it's been steadily growing in popularity within the retro community, likely thanks in no small way to the collectability of the system due to what is its most distinguishing feature: physical game cartridges. For the game cartridges, Blaze Entertainment has been steadily working with rights holders for classic games from legendary developers and publishers from the 80s and 90s, such as Atari, Data East, Interplay, Namco, and many more. It's a growing list too. Just recently, Blaze announced that they've been releasing a cartridge featuring a subset of the classic Worms series from Team 17. The system itself runs a Linux-based firmware on a 1.2 GHz Cortex-A7 system on a chip, the same chipset used by the Raspberry Pi 2. It has a 4.3-inch LCD display with a resolution of 480 by 272 and is powered by a rechargeable 2000 mAh battery, which is chargeable over mini USB. Also worth noting is the HDMI output, which outputs at 720p. Now, I mentioned that the Evercade runs Linux, which means that all the games are running on emulators. Now, as I mentioned, normally I'm not a fan of emulators, because while these days, yes, the performance of emulators versus the original hardware is generally okay, it's never completely issue-free. However, the emulator that runs on the Evercade is extremely performant, dare I say even comparable to FPGA-based platforms such as the MiSTer Project or any of Analog's consoles. However, unlike Analog, clearly you can actually buy these. In terms of physical presence, it's still far ahead of any other modern retro handheld on the market currently. Put simply, it feels like a premium product. The system itself has a nice weight to it, the buttons are pleasantly tactile and responsive, and the sound you get out of the Evercade's stereo speakers is remarkably crisp and boasts an impressive volume range with no distinguishable distortion. The display on the Evercade is of reasonable quality, which is to say it's not going to beat the IPS display on, say, an iPhone 11 Pro Max, but the colors are vibrant, the black levels are decent, and the viewing angles, I think, are more than wide enough for most people. In terms of battery life, again, I'm pretty impressed. I bought my Evercade about a month ago, and even with semi-regular use, I've only had to charge it once. And that's only because when I took it out of the box, it was only half charged to begin with. If that's not enough for you, there is an automatic screen timeout and configurable brightness controls to make sure you get the most out of the battery. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, however. I do have one, albeit slightly small, sticking point with the Evercade, and that's that I feel that its game library could be a bit stronger. While yes, it's fantastic to see the number of classics you can find thanks to names like Namco and Atari, and while yes, it's very cool to see formerly well-known, well-loved developers such as Interplay and Data East offering up their IP for the platform, I have to admit it would be nice to see more modern household names like Konami or Capcom, both of whom had plenty of classics back in the 8 and 16-bit era, putting their content on the Evercade versus the laundry list of Z-listers like Pico Interactive and Mega Cat Studios? Who? Having said that, I can fully respect that business relationships do take time to form, especially when you consider that Konami and Capcom are relatively large companies and Blaze Entertainment is, well, kinda not. So I can't begrudge Blaze or Konami or Capcom for not having their content on the Evercade right at launch. And besides, my snarky comments aside, I guess it is nice to see Blaze reaching out to smaller developers to make sure that their content gets noticed as well. So overall, who is the Evercade for, and is it worth the $100 price tag? Personally, I think it's well worth the price, especially when you consider just how inexpensive the cartridges themselves are at around $20 to $40 per cart. Also, as of this video, the entire collection plus the Evercade itself could be had for less than a cost of a previous generation console, yet the number of games that are out there are a large enough number that you can easily keep your inner collector satisfied for quite some time. Having said that, I'll go back to my original question: who is the Evercade for? Bottom line, if you're a retro collector in search of a quality handheld that has all the joys of collecting physical media in an age when everything is going digital, I can't recommend the Evercade enough. And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTuber doodly-doo that we always tell you to, and I will see you on the next episode of the Retro Review Show. Cheers. Bye for now. Thanks, everyone.